Hi, my name is Antonis and I'm the painter of this video. Today I will share with you the process of me painting the portrait of my good friend Maria using oil as my medium. So if you are into painting portraits with oil, stay with me in this video. I will share with you some thoughts and some tips on how to achieve and paint great portraits. Now, the first thing you see me doing here is painting the facial features of Maria on a dark red, a deep brown reddish color that I have first painted on my canvas. And I'm painting these hair features here after, of course, I have transferred on this red board the drawing of her face. I drew her face by using a photograph, and then I transferred the drawing on my board. And then with a dark color, as you see, I transferred her eyes, eyebrows, nose, mouth, hair, etc. After this, I quickly painted the black background. And I have to say I really enjoy this dramatic, contrast between a face, the warmth of a face and the lights that are on a face with the darkest black of the background. And after this I will start painting with pure titanium white the areas of light that I see that exist on Maria's face. As I say, I use a photograph for my reference, and this is a little bit easier because I have all the time in the world to discover, to observe, to notice what's happening on the face of Maria. Now, little by little, as you see, I will try to find these shapes of light, and of course the photograph is a colored photograph. I have to do a little translation, let's say, and paint everything that is in the light here with pure titanium white. This is a way to this is good for me because I familiarize myself with the face of my subject here and the shapes of light and shadows that I see. I take my time to observe, and little by little I build a face that is almost in two colors here, just red and white, but it already exposes some volume. This is something very similar I do when I paint with tempera. If you see my other videos of where I paint portraits with tempera, I almost always do an underpainting with black, using black and the white board as a means of brightness. And pretty much I will achieve a very similar effect here, but not using my gesso as my white, but actual pigment, and I will achieve this underpainting that you see here. I hope this does make sense. This underpainting is very helpful because it can guide me later on when I will paint with more fleshy colors, more actual, let's say, colors of the face, and also it will shine through the more transparent layers of color. It will shine through and will create this a more beautiful, a more dense, rich visual result. Here for the clothes of Maria, she was wearing this dark blue sweater, and I didn't have to do much. I didn't want to spend a lot of effort on her sweater. I just painted first the shadows of the sweater and just a little bit of manipulation of the color to achieve this illusion, let's say, of the clothes on her. So now I am ready to proceed with painting the skinny, let's say, the skinny colors on her face, to paint with colors that resemble a little bit more of human skin. And I created on my palette a color that is that consists of titanium white, yellow ochre, and a little bit of cadmium red. This color I want it to be a little bit transparent, so I will add some turpentine oil in it. I don't want my color to be very fatty yet by adding some oil in them, some linen oil in them. Not yet, not at this stage of the portrait. At this early stage, I want my colors to, as they come out of the tube and as I mix them, to just make them thinner by adding some turpentine oil, and that's it. So this color is a fairly transparent color. It's not very runny, but either not very dense, and I will cover with this almost the whole area of titanium white that I had painted on the previous layer. Now you have to make sure that the previous layer, the underpainting, as I said before, is dry completely. So from the previous session of painting where I painted this, there have passed a couple of days, and this underneath layer is completely dry now. Otherwise, there is no point. This second layer of painting that I'm adding now will interfere with the underneath layer, and it will destroy everything. Everything will become muddy. Now, as you see here, I'm covering almost all of the light area of her face, even some shadowy parts, like the nostrils of her nose and the mouth. I don't know why I left untouched the right eye. Really don't know why I did that. It doesn't really matter. I could have covered that as well. And as you see, the color, the underneath layer is shining through this second layer that I'm adding here. And now I am ready to proceed with adding some very basic shadows on the face of Maria. The color is still wet, and I will proceed with creating a color on my palette that is warm enough, very much darker in value. I don't really care so much about the hue and to achieve the exact same color. I will try to observe my reference and find at this point just some shapes of shadow and see how I can very carefully place them on the face of Maria. This color of shadow consists of yellow ochre, a little bit of titanium white. You can add a little bit of some red to make it warmer. It doesn't really matter, just see. I don't want to give specific recipes, just feel free to be guided by your reference. And although it might feel intimidating at the beginning, later on you will be glad that you can take your own decisions regarding the colors you use. Here I'm using a relatively soft brush, and it's a round small brush, and as you see I've placed these shadows, and I can either wait for them to dry or proceed with here I proceed with painting a second layer of shadows that is even darker. And if this first layer of shadow is still wet and doesn't permit me to work in a nice, comfortable way, I will stop and let the painting dry for some days, for a couple of days. But if it's pleasure for me to still work on the wet first layer of shadow, then it's fine to keep painting. Really, again, at this point, you have to just trust your instinct. You have to push a little bit your limits, see if you can work in this way or that, and see if you can achieve some nice results. Now, at this point here, I know the portrait looks horrible. It doesn't look very attractive, let's say, but you have to have faith as you paint on these early stages of your paintings. You have to have faith that everything will come out as you like, that will by the end the portrait will look exactly the way you like and even better. And maybe you can tell yourself that you will not move from the easel before you feel satisfied and before you feel that something nice has happened. Of course, it's okay to destroy a painting. It's really okay to do something completely irrational or whatever. To just do something you don't like. That's fine. We all have bad days, but I think little by little you will feel more comfortable, and everything will happen the way you like. Now here you see I'm adding some very bold colors, so very bright colors, and I find this is useful at this early stage of the portrait sometimes, because it will add some level of saturation on the painting, something that I really enjoy sometimes. And although it might seem horrible or completely off, later on this can play a very crucial role and inform your painting in a very beautiful, nice way. Again, I have to say I don't work by using any pre-recorded, let's say, steps in my mind. I will just proceed by using my instinct, my guts, let's say, and I've said to myself that okay, I will work on this portrait until I will feel satisfied. Now, at this point, it's very important for you to observe the shapes of shadows, the shapes of lights, and to compare these shapes with your reference, see if these shapes are correct, and not only correct as shapes, but also try to see how bright a shape is, how dark, etc. Also, as you see here, I've added the way I added before this bold reddish brownish colors, the same way I added this bold gray bluish colors that you saw just below the left eye. Although I don't see any of that on my reference, but or I can see a little hint of that on my reference. At this point I feel it's okay to be more bold and add these more let's say okay, let's to add these to be a little bit over the top with these colors. It's okay. These grayish colors will add more to the volume, to the beauty of the portrait. It's always nice, and those of you who are experienced in portrait painting, you will know this, that although we tend to believe that the human skin, the human face doesn't have at all any grayish bluish colors on it, sometimes this is we can be surprised by how cold, how bluish colors we can find, how many bluish greenish colors we can find on human skin, and this adds so much depth and beauty on the portraits that we are painting. Now you can find the full video of this tutorial on my Patreon page, where I paint in full time. It's a non-commented more than 2 hour video where I paint in real time. Okay, so far what I have done here is to add some warm lights on the face of Maria, then add some both warm and cold shadows, let's say, on the face of Maria, and then from this point on I will start doing some blending between these two colors, let's say. I haven't yet added any lights or any highlights on the face of her. I'm just going back and forth and try to see if if I can blend in a more smooth or more harsh way in some areas. Of course, my guide here is my reference, the photograph that I use, and now you'll see me proceed with painting the eyes. Of course, the eyes are so important when we paint. You have to paint some extra attention to the eyes, darken them gradually, observe, notice where the highlights of the eyes are, try to understand the anatomy of the human eye, the human eyeball, how an eyeball grasps, catches the light, how it's darker on the top, on the upper part of the iris, how it becomes a little bit brighter on the lower part, and also, now at this point, you will see me adding a second layer of light on her eyes, a light that is slightly more bright, of course, but also more pinkish. It means that I will have a color here that it has, of course, more titanium white than on the previous layer, but also I will add some more of red, some cadmium red, and not so much yellow ochre. I want this the closer I go to the light, the more pinkish I want this color to be. Of course, there are variations to the human skin. There are areas that in the light that are a little bit more greenier, more yellowish, more pinkish, etc. This is something you have to observe and see how you can proceed. I will add here these highlights, and I don't care to blend yet so much. That's fine. Just add these and see if they are consistent with your reference. See if what you add here adds to the visual experience, makes the portrait more interesting, more pleasurable visually. And yeah, see if you can blend. Now, when we paint in tempera, it's easier because, in my opinion, because the layers of paint dry, you are free to proceed very quickly from one layer of painting to the next. Of course, you can't move the color around and blend in a way that you can blend in oil, but in my opinion, it's very pleasurable to work with tempera. Here, with oil, you just make sure that the way you paint is pleasurable. It doesn't become, the color doesn't become muddy, doesn't become for you, a bad experience to paint with. And when you feel that the color underneath is so wet that you can't proceed with painting anymore, just give it a couple of days again for the paint to dry and proceed later on. Now, as you see, I go back and forth. I will create colors that are in between the second, let's say, light that I have painted here and the first light that I have painted. And I will do these back and forth blendings. I will also try to observe, to keep an eye for warm and colder areas and shapes of color and apply them. And as you see, still the portrait looks it doesn't look extremely convincing. It can become better, and As you are on your easel doing your portraits, have faith and push things until you are satisfied. Of course, it's very important to paint without stress, to paint in spirit of curiosity, the spirit of learning something, the spirit of a student, the spirit of excitement, and not in the spirit of fear and stress, and as if our whole life depends on this portrait. I would suggest if you are a beginner in this area of painting, to not try to paint a portrait of somebody you know, a friend of yours, but try to paint the portrait of an unknown person using a reference from a book or from internet, so you'll not have the stress of achieving this perfect likeness that it's so desirable when painting portraits, but also very stressful for many painters. Just use a reference of an unknown person, and just enjoy the process. Of course, don't just um, paint as being in a happy valley, try to push your limits, try to really observe, try to be to make objective thoughts and comments on the result that you have achieved, and this will guide you to really nice results. And later on you can use always photographs of people or actual people posing for you, and you painting their portrait. Now here I've added more of the facial features, the hairs on her eyebrows, the eyebrows, the eyelids, the highlights in the eyes, and as you see directly, the face becomes more bright, more vivid, more lifelike. At the same time, I'm more careful on the blendings, I'm more careful on the shapes of shadows, and I have to say that I do enjoy the result so far. Again, you can find the full tutorial on this portrait on my Patreon page. I will have a link below. And it's always nice to, you can always check my other videos here on YouTube, and the tutorial, the course I have on a platform where you can see how I paint a realistic portrait using the methods of the old masters, painting two faces, two portraits by Botticelli. Welcome on how to paint a realistic portrait like the old masters course. This course will teach you how to paint a portrait that is of high standards as those painted by the early Renaissance artists. My name is Antonis Kosmadakis, and I'm an iconographer and a painter. I have been studying Byzantine, medieval and Renaissance art since 1992, with degrees on painting from the Athens School of Fine Arts and the San Francisco State University. This course shows the technique of painting a face step by step in the traditional way of the artists of the early Renaissance, using specifically two works by the great Botticelli as our reference. By the end of the course, not only you will be able to understand the principles of using egg tempera as a medium to paint a portrait, but you will also be able to apply these various techniques on other mediums like acrylics and gouache. More than that, you will be given tips on drawing, colors, the pigments, and the brushes. If you want to improve your painting skills and use traditional techniques and concepts to enrich your artwork, this is a great course for you. All you need is passion for painting and a willingness to practice on this exciting way of painting like the old masters. So come join me into this course and see how vastly this can inform your artistic vision. Thank you so much. Stay creative. Now, I have to say that I gave this portrait to my friend Maria. She was really excited uh, by her gaze, how I depicted her gaze, her skin, and all this. She wasn't that much happy about the wrinkles of on her face, and to me that was so amazing, so nice. It was funny. Uh, when we paint portraits, people, it's a little bit tricky. People, our subjects, they have their own idea of how they look like. They have their own perspective of their face, and it can always be a little bit tricky when we present them with their portrait. Be ready for some comments that might not be the best always. That's fine. Also, be prepared to for if the customer, let's say, is a close friend of yours, for some sentimental reactions. So people always react strangely when they see their portrait, especially when it's painted in such using oil as a medium or tempera, because these portraits are usually seen by them in museums, or they have a specific way on them. So sometimes they have some very sentimental reactions, and that is very, very nice. So little by little, as you see, this portrait comes to its finish. From this point on, it's just back and forth, some blending, some corrections, adding a little bit of more saturated color and more less saturated color. I don't mind this rough texture that the final product has. Some painters, the final painting is so smooth and so blended. It's so, some other artists use portraits with a rough finish. The texture is very rough. They can use, very the colors in a very bold way. For me, coming from a tempera background, I find this slight roughness on the face to be charming. I like this. Although now that I think of it, tempera is not very rough as texture, but it has some rough transitions. The blending of tempera is not always very smooth. So this is probably why I'm okay with oil painting with a rough texture that in some areas does remind a little bit of tempera painting. For example, here on the portrait of Maria, her chin area, her mouth area does remind a lot of handling, of tempera handling. So that's fine with me. I really have to say how her eyes have a specific tension and power, and I like how her eyes are both strict, let's say, and melancholic at the same time. She really had an amazing gaze. Now she's a good friend of mine from our childhood. We grew up together, and this portrait is something I always wanted to do for her, and I'm so excited that finally I did it. It's so nice for us painters to do these portraits, because although what I'll say now will might be strange, it's true. When I paint somebody on my easel, it doesn't matter if I know him or not. I do tend to think about the person, to for the days that I'm painting the portrait, to live with this person, to imagine stories or what had what might have happened to this person if I don't know. And sometimes I have some images that pop in my mind about that person that are really, really vivid, and I can't really know if they have truly happened or not. But anyway, this is the beauty of painting portraits. You get to live with the person you paint, and you, it's, I believe, a very nice gift for us painters after we study somebody's face to give the painting, or to paint it as a commission and get also some financial reward. That's nice as well. So I was very happy to be with my friend Maria for a couple of days to paint her earrings here, and get a little bit back to my childhood and the games, all the fun we had together as kids. So thank you so much for being here. Enjoy your time in the studio. Enjoy your time before your easel. Paint a lot. Paint as students. Ask questions about what you see. Have fun. Have difficulties. Break your board, break your brushes. Actually, don't break your brushes, but feel free to destroy the painting if it doesn't go well. That's fine. Or paint amazingly, paint well, enjoy the result of your paintings, of your hands, and in general have fun. Don't be stressed. Painting is nothing to stress us. It's just a gift given to us for our joy, and we should all be so thankful for this. Thank you, Maria, for your photograph, and thank you all so much for being here. If you can, feel free to support this channel on Patreon, and I will see you soon with another video. Thank you so much. Stay healthy, stay creative. I'll see you soon. Bye.